Good morning. It's December 2nd, 2019. My name is Matthew Ogden, and thank you for joining us for a broadcast here on LaRouchePack.com. Today I'm joined by a guest who you are familiar with if you've been watching this show, Mr. Hussein Askary, who is the Southwest Asia correspondent and coordinator for Executive Intelligence Review and also a leading member of the Schiller Institute. Thank you very much, Hussein, for joining us here today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. Hussein is joining us from Sweden right now, but he just got back from a long trip to China where he was a speaker at an important conference on the New Silk Road. And prior to that trip, he participated in a conference that took place in Germany, which was sponsored by the Schiller Institute as a memorial to the living legacy of Lyndon LaRouche's ideas and method. This conference engaged hundreds of persons from all over the world, from dozens of countries, and all of them came together to celebrate the legacy and the continued effect of the ideas of Lyndon LaRouche. As Helga LaRouche said in her opening keynote speech at that conference, there were over 300 patriots of their nations and citizens of the world in that room, under the title, The Future of Humanity as a Creative Species in the Universe. Lyndon LaRouche's ideas were very present and very much alive at that conference. These ideas over the decades and over Lyndon LaRouche's life were translated into dozens of languages and have been studied by elected officials and ordinary citizens the world over, those who are dedicated to the progress of their nations and to the progress of humanity as a whole. Now, what Hussein Askary announced during his speech at this conference was that he is setting up a new university of sorts, an online university, the LaRouche School for Physical Economics, which is going to be dedicated to educating those who speak the Arabic language in the ideas and method of Lyndon LaRouche. And Hussein, I just wanted to read one short passage of what you said in your speech, which I think encapsulates the sentiment of all of those who participated in that conference on November 16th. What you said was that the future of Lyndon LaRouche's ideas on this planet and in the universe are dependent upon the actions that you personally take going forward and all of those who were gathered in that room, that this is truly the simultaneity of eternity. So that responsibility to take these ideas, put them into practice, and to continue to allow others to discover those ideas for themselves, that is the motto of sorts of what you are doing with your new online LaRouche School for Physical Economics. So let's just hear a little bit about what that plan is and what you've announced, and then we will get to some of the specifics about why this is so critical in the world today, especially among those nations in Southwest Asia.
Thank you, Matthew, for this introduction. Yes, that conference was a very special event. It was very touching too, because we had all those people discussing Lyndon LaRouche's ideas and his life's work. What I try to explain is I have worked with Lyndon LaRouche. I worked from 1995 until he passed away, and I continued to work with the LaRouche movement and the Schiller Institute as the only Arabic-speaking long-time associate of Lyndon LaRouche. I owe it to him personally, but I also owe it to the young people in the Arab world. There are 22 Arab countries, hundreds of millions of them, and also to coming generations, because the ideas of Lyndon LaRouche about economics, with everything it encompasses, not simply material economics, as some people try to explain, but the cultural, scientific, moral, and all the other aspects of what Lyndon LaRouche calls physical economics. We owe it to the coming generations that we convey these ideas. It's also urgent today, given the situation in many Arab countries where economic and social disaster has struck, like we have in Iraq, Lebanon, and many other countries, but especially in Iraq, my own native country. We had just the prime minister resigning after bloody protests. More than 1,000 young people were killed. Thousands were injured. And the only thing they have been asking for is to have a life of dignity, to have a productive job, to have a future, to have services. And all these things have been denied to the young people of Iraq since at least 1991 and the war which was launched on Iraq. There are all the economic sanctions, but especially since 2003 and the American-British invasion of Iraq, which completely destroyed Iraq's infrastructure and the healthcare system, education system, and it completely annihilated a whole nation. So I will come back to that, because these things are not ideas that hang in the past or in the future. These are very real issues that have to be dealt with now. And in the last conference, I met Lyndon LaRouche personally. His last conference before he passed away, that was 2018. We got a message from a school in Yemen, school kids. And think we have a picture of that where Lyndon LaRouche is standing between me and Helga LaRouche, chairwoman of the Schiller Institute and the wife of Lyndon LaRouche, and we are holding posters which were sent to us by this school in Yemen, right in the middle of a terrible war and the worst humanitarian crisis. But those kids told us that they were studying not only the so-called UN Sustainable Development Goals, but they are studying also what they call LaRouche's keys, the metrics of progress, which Lyndon LaRouche discusses in the, or we have it in the special report, the New Silk Road Becomes the World Landbridge, which I had translated into Arabic, and it's printed and distributed in Yemen. So some of the parents and also some of the young people in Yemen picked up these metrics of progress of Lyndon LaRouche, and they say, without having these into our study of the United Nations Sustainable Development Programs, we will go astray. Now, it's fascinating that have school kids who are interested in LaRouche's economics, but I think LaRouche's economics should become not simply an interesting source of inspiration or knowledge for specialized people or people in government who might be interested in LaRouche's ideas for their own nation, but we need to have a systematic way of presenting Lyndon LaRouche's ideas, all the way from school level to university and higher research and higher education system. We have to do it systematically because the problem today is all over the world, including the United States and Europe, there's a mystification of economics. Economics is made to either sound like it's all about money and power of that money, or it's a very, very complex thing that nobody understands. Only the experts and Nobel Prize winners and the central bank guys, even politicians and even people in Congress don't understand economics. So the City of London and Wall Street can manipulate any nation, also through the World Bank and IMF, because I realized from my work in many Arab countries that people in government don't really understand economics, and therefore the IMF and World Bank. And so people educated in Western countries can come to these countries and completely destroy the economy of that country and under the guise of knowing economics as a science. Well, that's as LaRouche described, this is quackery. It's not really science. And therefore, we need to teach people the basics of Lyndon LaRouche's physical economic ideas and make them transparent to all levels of society, from the layman to the university professors, to the people in parliament, to the scientists, and all the way up. I can just give because Lyndon LaRouche's ideas are so profound, but also very easy to grasp for people at the same time. I can give you the example. If you go to for example, a Mozart piano concerto number 21. Now you have one layman going into the concert who knows very little about music or nothing about music. You have a student of music, you have a musician, you have a teacher of music, and you have a composer of music, different levels of people. If that piece of music is well performed, everybody in that group will love it. And they will come out of the theater happier persons than they went in. Now, each of those people will understand it in a different way. The reason that all of them, including the layman, understand it's because it's the beauty and the harmony in the piece talks to their mind. And therefore, we have to be able to, because LaRouche's ideas are very profound. You take any of LaRouche's articles, it goes back thousands of years into history and thousands of years into the future, and deals about philosophy, physics, agriculture, anything. So it's very, very profound. Now, to be just to people, we have to, in a way, to break it down and gradually go from the layman level, school kids, and have a systematic way of presenting that all the way up gradually to the university level, to the scientific research level, and so on and so forth. So we can have, because there are many layers of knowledge built in. It's like in Mozart's or Beethoven's music. It's easy to love the music, but there are so many layers built into that piece of music, which gradually, with more knowledge about music, or in this case, more knowledge about physics and other aspects of human knowledge, you start to grasp why that piece of music is so fantastic. So we need to do justice to people, and also because people need to know when they go out in the streets demanding justice, nobody can fool them though by bringing in some gibberish statistics or some theories or computer models or mathematical models from the IMF or the World Bank. This is how economy works, and if you don't make it this way, that you would be a failure. I looked at the Yemen economy when I wrote the Yemen reconstruction study, and I looked in the last 30 years of Yemen's economy, but especially since the IMF World Bank jumped on the wagon, because Yemen was very much dependent on export of oil and gas to buy everything society needs. And when the oil prices went down, the country was almost bankrupt. So the IMF goes in and they bring so-called structural adjustment programs to the government, 5-year programs. And after each 5 year, the economy is worse than it was before. So because the people in the Yemeni government don't grasp economics, the IMF would come in and say, oh, you implemented our program not correctly. Now we will give you another structural adjustment program for the next 5 years. And of course, the president of Yemen and many people around him don't understand anything of that discussion. And therefore, I discovered in that way that the big problem is not simply military invasion or attacks. You can have people in suits coming to your country and telling you how to destroy your own country with using economics. So in that sense, what we are going to do, we already have a website. It's called Arabic LaRouche.com. Or it's the formal title is the LaRouche School for Physical Economics. It's only for Arabic-speaking people, because that's the area where I can, and the language culture I can work with. And the website will be, as you see, it will be by subscription. It took us a lot of time, me and intelligent young assistant, technically gifted. We built this website from scratch, so to speak, to make it a tool. It's like a school. You have classes, you have material, but everything starts with subscribing. We need people to subscribe to the school, enroll in the school, and of course there will be a fee to enroll in the school. We might have differentiated depending on the economic situation in different countries, but there should be a fee because the school has to be also self-reliant financially. People also can donate. We're going to have some English information there to inform people if they want to donate, they can do that. But they should bring their Arabic-speaking friends to our website and enroll in the school. And in that way, they will have access to, first of all, the translated material. I translated Lyndon LaRouche's book, So You Wish to Learn All About Economics. This is LaRouche's basic economics book. And also we have the Arabic translation of the special report, The New Silk Road Becomes the World Landbridge. And these two will be the basic material. Those who subscribe will have free access to these two books. And these two books will become the basis for a series of classes. Each chapter or each group of chapters from the books will be part of a series of classes, which I will personally give. I will also have supporting material from Lyndon LaRouche's own economics classes. Has a wonderful video educational called The Power of Labor, which we will have in Arabic translation too. And we will use that as backup. We have also fantastic work done by associates of Lyndon LaRouche, especially the basement team, the young people. We will also include that in the material. So we'll have a series of courses, about 10 classes, either weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the capacity we get and also the number of people we have subscribing to our school. And we will go through the very basics of LaRouche's ideas, from what the basic concepts like what is the relative potential population density, what is energy flux density, and so on and so forth. So there are many concepts that the students or the people who will subscribe need to understand in order to be able to go further into this course. So this is the kind of thing we're going to do. It's a bit of a complicated website, but we try to simplify it so the students or the people enrolled in the classes will have an easy time accessing all the material. And then they send questions before and after each class, which I will try to answer them, or I will get assistance from other LaRouche associates to answer these questions. Now we also have, we will have special agreements with certain universities in the Arab world to enroll a group of their students who are studying economics or in that field to become also part of the school. Now these universities will have to decide themselves if these courses are good enough to include them in their curriculum. So people get certificates. In the LaRouche school, we can only give some sort of a diploma that this person or the group of people participated in this class series, and we can provide that, but we cannot give university certificates because we are not a formal university. But the issue is that LaRouche's economics should be part of university curriculums around the world, not simply an interesting item which people are fascinated by. And it's not enough for us as the LaRouche associates to just simply ask people, oh, read his book, read this article, watch this video. We need to become an embodiment, the teachers who will bring these ideas, because it took me a very long time when I was translating LaRouche's book to understand every aspect of what he's talking about. There are many aspects of what he discusses are still veiled for me. I need to learn more. So imagine a person who is encountering LaRouche's work for the first time. It's very, very tough. And therefore we have to help people, guide them along the way to grasp LaRouche's work in the most pedagogical way possible. So that's basically the idea. When the website is completed, we can already, as I do now, announce the address of the website, and people can already subscribe now. We will have the first 100 subscribers can subscribe for free for the first series of classes, and they will have free access to all the material in Arabic, the written material, and also the videos. In addition, people who are not subscribers, well, first of all, the books will be available also on the website for people who want to buy them as physical products, because the books will be available for the participants in the course as digital. They can only read them on the website. But people who want to have a physical copy of these books, whether they are part of the course or not, they can order them from us for a certain price. So in addition to the classes themselves, I will be giving the strategic and economic updates regularly, where people can access them for free. And in a sense, to connect our method of analyzing economic, strategic, and political developments in the world, how that is connected to LaRouche's own thinking, the LaRouche's method of analyzing, of forecasting. So in that way, people have both an update, a strategic economic update, but also they will realize why it is important to study LaRouche, to be able to make similar analysis of the situation, but also to be able to make proposals to their government or to whoever they discuss with on how to solve certain issues. LaRouche has proven through his webcasts, his forecasts, and through his proposals for what the world needs, that his method works. We also have partially proven that our method in the proposals we have for reconstruction of certain countries in the world, that both our analysis of what went wrong, but also how the situation can be changed, is correct, because it depends on this scientific method of Lyndon LaRouche. So that's basically the idea. And I'm looking forward to interacting with thousands and God knows millions of young Arab people who are hungry and willing to study these ideas, because it's becoming a matter of life and death for their own countries.
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, as you said, Lyndon LaRouche's ideas have been studied by ordinary citizens and world leaders alike over decades, and it's more crucial now than ever that these ideas become part of what our future leaders are educated in depth about. But, you know, Lyndon LaRouche was writing reports directly for the President of Mexico, López Portillo, for the Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi. Participating at the conference in November was Josef Mikleško, who was the former vice president of Slovakia. The members of the Ronald Reagan administration here in the United States were studying LaRouche's ideas and meeting with him. But you yourself have put together proposals which have been studied by governments and government representatives in the Southwest Asia region. We collaborated on putting together a video called Operation Phoenix, but that was based on a report that you had drafted, which go through Lyndon LaRouche's ideas of national credit, of the metrics of true productivity, of increasing the productive powers of labor, understanding energy flux density, and putting all of those into action to reconstruct this battle-torn war zone in Syria and elsewhere. At the conference in Germany in November, Jacques Cheminade, who is one of LaRouche's leading associates from France, he spoke about how there is a mass strike ferment which is sweeping various parts of the world. In his own country, France, there's the Yellow Vest movement, which is now it is now observing its first anniversary as a movement, as a protest movement in France. In Southwest Asia, we saw what happened in Lebanon with the resignation of Hariri, and now we saw what's happened with in Iraq, where there are protests in the streets. But as Jacques Cheminade said, in a mass strike ferment, these people can recognize that what is the current status quo cannot continue to persist. But they need leadership that can formulate a vision for the future and articulate the means to get there. And it's Lyndon LaRouche's ideas right now which are so crucial to be the leadership for that sort of mass strike ferment. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what has happened in your country, Iraq, in the broader region there, and how specifically these protesters can use LaRouche's ideas to reconstruct their nations?
Yeah, well, what this whole called mass strike has revealed, there are two things. The problem in Iraq is twofold. We have an external problem, which started with the invasion of Iraq. At the time, Lyndon LaRouche and I personally, we warned against, even after the invasion took place, we warned against demolishing the institutions of the state, the defense, the security, police, the different utilities and ministries for water, power, agriculture, transport, that these should be kept intact. And people should go back to work, no matter their allegiance, whether it's the former regime or not. These are Iraqi citizens. And we said at the time that if you have problems with certain individuals who committed crimes during Saddam Hussein's period or whatever, these things you can deal with gradually. You can select the people, can put them on trial, but you don't destroy the whole state structure. And that's what happened when the United States decided to have Paul Bremer as the governor of Iraq. Security, police, military, all different ministries, except for the oil ministry, as people say, were completely shut down. So how you can reinvent a nation which took hundreds and maybe thousands of years to build? You had intelligent people, hardworking people who were highly educated in Iraq. They were thrown out in the streets. You had military and intelligence people, well-trained, who were suddenly thrown out in the streets, and they were beaten in front of their families, and they were tortured in prisons. And then what happened? They turned against and became part of the insurgency, and then later many of them joined the Al-Qaeda and the ISIS. So this is what was done to Iraq. On top of that, you had a new leadership coming to Iraq, which was imported from outside. They had no connection to the Iraqi people. Those people were living in exile, mostly in Britain or in Iran or in the United States, but mostly in Britain. And most of the Iraqi government people and members of parliament have double citizenship, British, Iraqi. And those people were brought by helicopters and aircraft carriers to Iraq to rule a country which they know nothing about. And they know nothing about economy. So the elite of Iraq, political elite, was completely corrupt. And this is what people are reacting to. The problem is that when the state was removed, when the authority of the state was no longer there, when the idea of citizenship was taken out with it, people needed something to hang to. So people went to their religious allegiances, to the religious leaders, to the ethnic leaders, and so on and so forth. So therefore, you have the Shia going back to their to the religious authorities to seek guidance and also protection, because there is no state to go to. The Kurds, they had their own thing. The Sunnis were there, and that then was manipulated to create this division in the country, which led to the horrible sectarian war and terrorism. Now, the problem today is still when the Iraqi government wants to do something crucial. It's like even when the prime minister resigned, he had to send a letter to the highest Shia religious authority, Ayatollah Sistani. It's like a pope who everybody has to go to ask. I mean, al-Sistani had said, I don't want to take politicians into my house. I don't want to talk to them. They have to look after the interests of the people. The problem is that these political elites, which were brought after the invasion, they are corrupt. The problem is that after each election, the same politicians are recycled. Their parties have new names, they change chairs, but it's exactly the same group of people who have now governed Iraq for 16 years. And therefore, and also the intellectual elites in Iraq, the experts, the scientists, the intellectuals, the poets, the artists, the musicians, almost all of the qualified people left Iraq or they were killed. So we have a total void in Iraq, which even if the current government resigns, who will fill it? And now that's the big discussion among the young people, you know, and because there's no leadership for this group. And if they ask for new elections, the same corrupt people will be elected. So that's a real dilemma. But what I'm trying to do with people is to give them an idea of how they can rebuild their nation, but they have to understand certain specifics of how a national economy works, how physically you can rebuild your country, what kind of financial structure you need. You need national banking, you need a credit system. And at the same time, you know, you cannot do it alone. You need to connect to the new paradigm which is going on in the world. China, Russia, and their allies have created a new paradigm. The Belt and Road Initiative has moved from being a concept, an idea, into the most dominant activity on this planet. It's something which is fantastic, great, and unstoppable. Now, the Iraqi people or the Lebanese people can also resort to that, the wisdom and the correct method which was used by the Chinese to develop their country, and connect to the Belt and Road. And in that way, also get support for their own aspirations. But what is lacking is the knowledge of economics. It's not simply corruption. Corruption has been there, but that's not the problem. And I was telling people, look, friends in Lebanon say, okay, you want to take out the corrupt people, and then what? What will happen after that? How are you going? Some people in the IMF and World Bank will send you so-called technocrats, experts who are educated in London School of Economics or in Harvard or in Oxford, and they say, oh, these are the guys, these are not corrupt, they're not political, they are technicians, they can come and help you. And that's where the people will fall into a new trap. And therefore, knowledge of physical economics is very, very important. And people can learn this in a very, you know, learn the basics very quickly in a way that nobody can fool them anymore. And therefore, it's urgent that we get into this work immediately now and provide the. We have done studies and, you know, proposals to governments, like the Syria reconstruction, which you mentioned, or the Yemen reconstruction. But then that's simply take it or leave it thing. The people in the government might not like it. They might have a different agenda, and then the thing gets lost. But if you educate a section of the population in the principles and the method, which is on these studies are based on LaRouche's method, then you have a chance of getting those young people to push their government and their institutions to implement these policies. But they need to understand them first. And that's the mission I'm taking upon myself. I cannot write proposals for all 20 countries in the Arab world, which might end up somewhere. But if I educate a certain sector of the population, I will have a greater chance of getting them to do what is good for their nations in that way.
Well, I should mention that here in the United States and in the English-speaking world, if you do not speak Arabic, we have also inaugurated a new class series, which is based on Lyndon LaRouche's ideas around educating a new generation on those concepts. This is a 6-week class series on the subject of reanimating an actual economy, which was one paper that was authored by Lyndon LaRouche in 2006. And the point of this class series, a 6-week series, is to take a look at that paper specifically and to break it down and to explore every aspect of what, as you said, Hussein, is clearly a very profound approach to the science of physical economics. The first of those class series has already occurred, but as you can see on the screen here, that's available. And you can subscribe and be an online participant of this class series. There's people who participate in the actual room itself, and then there's people who are participating over the internet. So this is an image of Lyndon LaRouche's paper, Reanimating an Actual Economy. And the website that you can visit for the English language class series is discover www.larouchepack.com. So that's for those who are viewing the show who are eager to explore Lyndon LaRouche's ideas but might not have the language capability to participate in the online school that Hussein is setting up. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that this was part of the discussion also at the conference in Germany, November 16th and 17th. There were presentations on the scientific method of Lyndon LaRouche by Jacques Cheminade from France, by Sébastien Drochon, also from France, also by Jason Ross and Megan Beats from the United States. Both of those, Jason and Megan, are sponsoring and leading this class series in the United States. But to conclude, Hussein, maybe we can go back to the discussion which occurred at this conference on Lyndon LaRouche's living legacy, his method, his ideas, and maybe you can just give us a sense, a little bit, for those who did not have the chance to participate in this conference, what the discussion was like there, being there in person, and also the sentiment among all people that were shared that this is now incumbent upon us, our responsibilities to carry these ideas into the future, that Lyndon LaRouche's future, as you said, depends on what we do with his ideas now, and this is an understanding of the simultaneity of eternity and the immortality of human ideas.
Yeah, well, the conference was a fascinating phenomena. I have been participating in conferences like this for many years, but this time it was very, very special because you had people from different countries, different cultures, different language groups, all focused on one theme. And it's the legacy and the person of Lyndon LaRouche. Because Lyndon LaRouche is not simply ideas. You have to get a sense of who he is as an individual. Unfortunately, many people will not have the chance to have lived and worked together with Lyndon LaRouche. But what these people conveyed there is a living sense of this man's work and talent. It's his dedication is just incredible. His dedication to ideas, his dedication to the progress of humankind. You could see it from the different speeches, and people looked at him from different, perspectives. They had musicians, we had scientists, we had economists, we had people with religious background, and so on and so forth. So it's very fascinating to see that the continuity of one's life through the mind of others, but also not simply through the mind, because LaRouche is not a number of interesting articles and speeches and discussions. It's like a complete, it's a school. The man embodies a school. It's not a singularity in a sense in this time, but he's a continuation of centuries, thousands of years of great minds. And you can see that, you can almost touch it in the way people express their experience with the work of Lyndon LaRouche and him as a person. So it shows you this idea of simultaneity of eternities, that this is the same way people felt about Socrates, after his life, his students, how Plato looks at Socrates, and then how the followers of Plato see Plato. And in that sense, it's a beautiful picture of the meaning of our having lived. Because when we focus on the best of humanity, on the beauty which we have inherited from others, and how we can understand that and be able to deliver it to others, hopefully we can enrich it. We can make it more thorough and more enriched. We have to do our best to do that. And this is what is the beauty of going from one generation to the next generation. This idea of progress, this idea of continuity among humans. I quoted from a tradition of the Prophet Muhammad, where he says, if a living person dies, your connection to this world is cut except for three things. You have a charity which continues after you, or you have knowledge or science which we leave behind, which is of benefit for humanity, or you have a posterity, you have your own children or children of children. So in that sense, LaRouche is immortal because he left us these wonderful ideas, but he also left us living human beings who are continuing his work. He's not his direct children, but these are people who can be considered as his posterity, which will continue hopefully through next generations. But the issue is now that these ideas are not in the past. It also affect everything we do in the world today. And we should use that as much as possible to solve the problems humankind is facing today and go out with these ideas. So in that sense, this conference was very special. I mean, people can watch the speeches and the beautiful music, but it was a good way of honoring Lyndon LaRouche's work and whatever he did in his life.
Well, we're very excited to see where your project goes. We're happy that we've been able to help you introduce this idea to a wider viewership, and we definitely will be continuing to follow up on your online LaRouche University for Arabic speakers. And as you just said, I really strongly encourage everybody who did not have a chance to attend to watch the full proceedings of that Schiller Institute conference. It's available on the Schiller Institute website, and we've also posted the video of segments of each panel on the LaRouchePack.com website. So very, very inspiring, and it's really crucial. I think that what you've said, these are not just ideas which are in the past, that this is a continuity of hundreds and thousands of years of history, but this is also something which is crucial for our living actions today. So thank you so much, Hussein, for joining us here. We look forward to speaking with you again, hopefully soon, and we've really enjoyed every one of the conversations that we've had with you here on LaRouchePack.com.
Thank you too.
So thank you for viewing, and please stay tuned.